Miriam thought it was a great idea that we should start with a short meditation. So maybe you could find a comfortable seat and sit up nice and tall. Maybe you can turn the fan down just a little bit. Just like down, like just down 1 notch or so. Is that okay? Are you guys hot?
It's okay.
I'm chilly, I don't know why. So nice tall spine. Take a couple of nice long breaths so you can settle into your seat. Maybe you can even relax your jaw a little bit. And smooth out your forehead a little bit. And just take a moment and ask yourself why you're here. And probably every single one of us, the answer involves looking for happiness. It's the wish behind every single action, every single thought. And so if we're looking for happiness, we need to understand the causes for it. So think of somebody who you know who is in pain and put them in front of you. Imagine them sitting there facing you. And look deeply into their eyes. And then in your heart, you can see you have this wish that they also have happiness and that they are free from any kind of suffering. You have this wish. And let this be your intention for being here tonight, that you learn some techniques to be able to help others find happiness and avoid pain. Okay, then you can begin to deepen your breath and open your eyes. So how many of you have been to a Lady Lamas teaching before? Okay, maybe half, maybe a little more. Just to introduce a little bit about what it is, our holy teacher, Lama Lisette Garcia, she's in a 3-year silent retreat right now in Arizona. She'll be out in 2014. Miss her a lot. She started this Lady Lama series, and it was actually the vision of her Lama, Lama Christy McNally. And I think I didn't hear it straight from Lama Christy, but the idea behind these teachings for women is few reasons. One, there is something about when you bring women together, something very special happens. You know, like it's just a different approach to the way women interact with each other on a daily basis. You know, there's none of this like competitiveness. There's a nice camaraderie. And in Buddhism today, spiritual practice, doesn't matter what you call it, women need to have that camaraderie. We need to help each other. There needs to be this kind of strong community between us because, especially in Buddhism, there's a history of kind of a male-dominated tradition, right? Like if you practice yoga, you see like the practice of yoga was kind of designed for men. And so women who want to practice yoga have to take a special care, to be able to practice it. Same with Buddhism, same with the teachings, the Dharma teachings. You have to kind of, make it your own practice. So that's one reason. Then another reason is that the wisdom teachings are said to be female energy. They're left channel. And so women have kind of an inner body connection to the wisdom teachings. So you have a propensity towards understanding the wisdom side of the teachings. And then another reason is, I think it was like 2-3 years ago when His Holiness said, the Dalai Lama said, that it's going to be the Western woman who saves the world. So something very special that we have, like a special task that we have right now, and I think it's a really beautiful thing that we're all here together. And then just like a general disclaimer we want to throw out is we don't claim to be any kind of high practitioners with any realizations at all. Just we wanted to kind of have, this is an offering to our Lama, but it's also, one thing that we can offer is kind of to share our mistakes, because we've been practicing these teachings for a while, and like from friend to friend, we can say, these are the things that we've done wrong, and maybe it might be helpful to you. So that's, now that that's out there, I can relax a little more. So what we wanted to base the teachings on tonight is a text by someone named Master Shantideva, who lived around 700 AD in India. His name, Shantideva, Shanti means peace and Deva means angel. His story is very interesting. He was born into a royal family, and he was supposed to kind of ascend the throne and become the king of this one kingdom in India. And the night before he was about to take the throne, he had this dream, this vision of Manjushri, Lord Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom. And in the dream, he's walking towards his throne, and then he sees Manjushri sitting on the throne. And Manjushri says to him, "Oh, I'm your teacher. We both can't sit on the throne. It would be improper." So then Master Shantideva takes that as a message, and the next day he runs away from the home. And he gives up his home life. He gives up all the royal, nice, lavish life. And he goes to Nalanda Monastery. And he becomes this really great scholar. When he's really young, actually, even in the royal family, he had tutors then, and he was given the higher teachings at the age of 6. So he was empowered into different high teachings, at the age of 6. So he'd already been exposed to the Dharma. So he had this very ripe kind of mind for the teachings. And when he got to Nalanda Monastery, he started to accomplish a lot and studied with the high teachers there. And he became a great scholar, a great debater, and he was said to have attained these really high stages of realization where, for example, like at one Bodhisattva Bhumi, you're able to remember by heart any text that you learn. And you're able to sit and hear a teaching and remember every single word verbatim. So he was said to be like that. And then he was also said to have had clairvoyance and these kind of high powers. But he was very much like a secret practitioner. Nobody knew on the outside what he was really about. All the other monks in the monastery, unless they also had those high realizations, they just saw him as this kind of ordinary guy at the monastery. And Nalanda at the time was this incredible monastery. It had thousands of monks. Some of them were incredible scholars. Some of them also had those high realizations too. So it was like this high status place to be. So the monks that didn't know any better kind of saw Master Shantideva like this, and they had a nickname for him. They called him Busuku, which means Mr. Three Thoughts. Just eating, sleeping, and pooping. They said that's all he cared about, was just eating, sleeping, and pooping. Because to them, he wasn't doing anything very, reputable. So they decided they wanted to play a joke on him, and they wanted to get him embarrassed and leave the monastery. So they asked him to recite some sutras in front of an assembly of monks. And he said, "How could anyone like me recite sutras?" And they said, no, you do it. And he said, okay. So it was this assembly of thousands of monks there, and he comes to the assembly hall, and he goes up to the throne, and they had built this incredibly high throne with no way to get up on it. There was no ladder, no stairwell or anything. So he goes to the throne, and he touches the throne, and then suddenly he's on the throne, and then everybody's paying attention. And he says, "Would you like me to recite something that you've heard before? Would you like to hear something new?" And they say, "Something new." So he says, "Okay, I'm going to teach you the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life." And he starts reciting. It's a beautiful text. If you've read it, it's all in verse. It's like poetry. And it's all like, it's got all the Bodhisattva vows and all the practices, the 6 perfections. And it's just this incredible work of art, beautiful teachings. It's one of the most important texts, I think, in Buddhism, next to like the Lamrim Chenmo. So he, somewhere around, like, it's said to be somewhere around the 9th chapter, maybe a third of the way to the 9th chapter, he starts to ascend off the throne and float into the air. And in the middle of the chapter, people don't see him anymore. Some of them can't hear him anymore. The ones that are clairvoyant can still hear and are listening to the teachings. And then he floats away, and he's like somewhere in India somewhere. And all the monks are like, oh my God, And so they go back to his room, and they find in the rafters the rest of the text. So that's how we have the text. And it's just like so beautiful, Master Shantideva, the way he taught the way he lived his life was a teaching, For us, it's like that kind of secret practitioner is the most powerful. Like he didn't do any of it with any ego. And if it's true that karma is all intention, if everything is created by your motivation, then if you have some sort of high practice like that nobody knows about, that's secret like that, then aren't you creating the most pure intention, the most pure motivation? And what kind of results was he having? He was having incredible results, right? To be able to attain those high levels at such a young age. So if you want to study further the text, we're only going to choose, a few verses. If you want to study further, John Stillwell is about to teach Course 10. ACI Course 10, 11, and 12 are all Master Shantideva's text. There's 10 chapters, so Course 10 is like, I think, chapters 1 through 4. And it's a really, really beautiful thing. And if you don't get a chance to take that, you can go to the ACI Dharma site, and Course 10, 11, and 12 is on there, of course. So for tonight's class, we sort of had the idea of offering a teaching that's aimed at women who have been exposed to the teachings already. They've heard some of this stuff before, but perhaps they're kind of in a place they've plateaued a little bit. Maybe they're a little stuck at some level, and maybe you can identify with sometimes feeling like you're practicing, but you're not seeing so much results. You kind of hit this like wall, and you're still seeing the same kind of images over and over again in your life. And it's kind of like, I heard Lama Chrissy talking in Arizona in the wintertime, and she said, don't practice hard, make your practice deeper. So that's really what we're kind of trying to get to tonight. I was thinking about it at home, and it's kind of like, I teach yoga, and I was thinking it's like when I'm in a yoga class and I see somebody who looks like they're really suffering. You know, and they're just like, their veins are popping out, and they're shaking, and they're sweating a lot, and they're just like, they're not breathing, and I'm just like, that's what it's like. You know, they're trying really hard, but something they haven't gotten to the subtle level yet, you know. Or even if you're not a yoga practitioner and you're a meditator and you meditate and you look like that, you know, and people look at you and they're like, you're suffering, you know, and it's like your Dharma practice, your spiritual practice should not make you more miserable. Your mind should be getting happier, right? So if it isn't, then we need to look at like the underlying kind of the whole belief system that underlies the practice. Something needs to be tweaked there. And I'm not saying that the deeper your practice is, the less obstacles you will have. Because that's not the case. It might even be the reverse. The deeper your practice is, maybe more obstacles come. More demons come, you know. But the thing about that is, the deeper your practice is, the more solid your foundation is, and the higher your wisdom is, and the less you're fooled by those appearances. You know, the less you get caught up in them. Not that I'm there yet. So the subjects that we want to talk about have to do with these obstacles. You know, maybe we haven't quite figured out how to kill anger yet. Maybe we're still getting angry a lot in our thoughts, and Roshin's going to talk about that. And then maybe we have the tendency to kind of go on automatic or waste time. You know, the time that we call the in-between time between when we're on the cushion. And that's what Miriam is going to talk about. And I forgot to introduce these ladies to you. So this is Roshin Brennan. Roshin Bode or Brennan?
Brennan.
She kept her name. She's from Ireland, and she's a mom. She's about to be a mom of a second one. And she's an artist, and she lives in Nyack. She used to live in New York, and then she escaped. And this is Miriam Parker. She was born and raised in the Lower East Side, and she's a dancer, and she's a really great practitioner, really beautiful person. And I'm Nancy Allen, and I'm a yoga teacher. I study acupuncture. I teach some of the Bhakti-yoga courses here. That's good. And I'm a mom.
And a mom.
And then I kind of wanted to talk about our tendency to view things as though that view was the only way. And then how can we change it at the root?
Thank you, Nancy. So nice to be here. So thank you for coming and sharing this with us. I chose 2 verses from the 7th chapter. I think you have handouts. I'm just going to read it once, and you guys can look over it. But 7th chapter, 14th verse. Relying upon the boat of a human body, free yourself from the great river of pain. As it is hard to find this boat again, this is no time for sleep, you fool. Having rejected the supreme joy of the sacred Dharma, which is boundless source of delight, why am I distracted by the causes of pain? Why do I enjoy frivolous amusements in the life? This is, I really love these verses. I've been finding myself daydreaming about ice cream cones and assortments of pastries, and have found myself after like days and days of like intense practice, like, you know, somehow like with ice cream cone in one hand and like about to grab for my internet and Hulu connection to go straight into a movie, which I find is think is gonna give me great respite. So after having these cycles of being so blessed to be around such an amazing group and being having really amazing reflections around me of what is possible. You know, we see in New York and we have this great opportunity to see what is possible. What can you do with this mind? What can we develop? How can we be mothers and great practitioners and really entrepreneurs? And you have these wonderful examples around you, and when you have the opportunity to be really immersed in a teaching or around that environment, I am always left with how great is this human life and how sweet it can be, you know. Like, just hang out with Francis for like an hour, you're like, this is awesome, you know. Or, you know, or not, but most of the time, yes. You know, and the fact that the ice cream at moments has tasted that good, that I have some reference to it, is, you know, it keeps me going. So when I'm like, dun, 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 you know, going towards the light, I've just been around my best friend, I just had dinner with my mom, and I'm just like, you know, anything is possible. And then I find myself many times, all of a sudden, I don't want to get up. I don't want to go take dance class, even though I know dance class is going to really serve me well. And I know quite a few things, like maybe 5 things, but I still find myself in the clutches of really, really wanting to have that. Well, for me, it's ice cream cones and such, and whipped cream, and like things that are going to inevitably give me a stomachache an hour later. And to me, that's like a wall. Like, how, if I know that if I go to dance class every day, it's going to really make me feel better, or, you know, that if I do certain actions wisely, that it's going to, a lot of times, give me almost immediate results. I still am finding myself thinking that if I wear the red dress, that it's definitely going to be better than that blue jean skirt, because I'm a look hotter, and then it's possible that the guy's going to totally like me more. That's like definite. In that moment, that's like, no. This is my so we speak, you know, I very much want to break through that, you know. I do understand, I think most of us here understand that the way that we reach our goals is when everything we do is about those goals, you know. What you sow is what you reap, you know, so if I'm thinking that the red dress is definitely going to make my butt look better, and that is going to be the reason why he's going to like me more, the only seed I'm really planting in that moment is not, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. We know that, right? So how do I go deeper? How do I actually, at that moment where I am like king cone, or even better, chipwich ice cream with humor, with the dark chocolate around, and I know that I'm going to have to get up for class, and it gives me gas for some reason, because I haven't given enough chipwiches with wisdom in the past. So what is it that's going to help me deepen that moment, you know? And I realize that I'm kind of going blind at that moment. I'm trying to recall a sensation or a bigger impetus to move than that chipwich, than that belief at that moment. And I know there's a nice saying, like, in the moment, it's like, it's got you in its jaws, and it's very hard to free yourself. And so I thought, well, if I had a broader palette of emotion, then I could kind of resource these other things that would pull me away from the chip glitch in a way where I thought it was going to actually bring me pleasure. So I realized that I'm poking in the dark at this moment. And what I mean by that is, like, how do you cultivate an impetus to move if you don't have that knowledge yet? You know, you only know what you know. You know that, like, last week it tasted really good. Everybody else is telling me that. Like, I look everywhere around me and everybody's really concerned about what they're wearing. And they're working on this level, and I'm like, you know, and then, so it's confusing. So I realized, well, maybe it's the things I don't know. I don't really, I don't, where I'm sitting, I'm kind of pretending that I know a lot of times, you know, because my teacher has told me. So maybe that's the place where I have to start. Maybe it's the places that, in the moment of grabbing for the good humor, that whole wrestling match is going nowhere. So, like, maybe relax, like, eat the chip witch, go with it, flow. And then when I'm not starving and ravenous and drooling like a crazy person, that's the moment that I have a chance to kind of work with wisdom. So I wanted to talk about how to go deeper, and my ideas and my experience with how to go deeper was looking at the spaces in between, you know, because there's in the moment it's just ripening. At that moment, you kind of, it's already happened, you know. And so I've been thinking about it, that I was going to teach, so I was trying myself some of these antidotes that I thought were going to help, which is, my chances are, I have 24 hours, right? Things that I value are my dance classes, my meditation classes, and that's kind of it. Those are the things that I think are like the awesomest parts of my day. Which leaves me around 7, 8, 9 other hours in my day, which I somehow feel are like, you know, I don't know, they're just like leading up to this, you know, this is when it starts. So I started to think about, well, what if I illuminate all the spaces in between? And what if I thought about the pleasure of that chip witch bar happening right now? You know, what if, you know, what if I started to practice in between my moments? Because once I have that chip witch bar, it's like taking, you know, like 5 minutes and it's already over. And if I know that the real pleasure of that moment is going to come from me offering sweetness to other people, then really my practice is happening during those 8 hours, you know, in between sessions. So I started to think about it in my dance classes and movement, you know, and like I have these places I arrive. So I thought about, how do I arrive in these places? You know, the quality of that moment is dependent on the awareness in which I take in between. So I started to do things like, I remember Oprah Winfrey was doing a show about teaching people hygiene. So she said, to wash your hands, I know it sounds like I'm going up, but to wash your hands, you just sing happy birthday to you, and then that's the right amount of time. You can teach your kid this, and they do that. And I actually found myself singing happy birthday to you. It is really long, but then you get to sing it really fast. Happy birthday to you, and then you're having fun and you're washing your hands. So I was thinking that, well, what if I did really simple gestures, and that is the time that I practiced my meditation, or I enjoyed my chip witch bar actually happened when I was washing my hands, you know. So you know, like you're washing your hands, you're thinking about like the way that the chip witch is, and you're thinking about giving everybody that sensation when they eat it, and you're thinking about all these things. So all of a sudden, this very simple gesture becomes a really nice offering. The other thing I like to do is when I'm walking down the street. I started a very high practice of golden light zapping. It's very complicated, but where I basically walk down the street and I kind of imagine, like, anytime I look at someone that they explode into 1,000 particles of light, and every dream that they have comes true. And I have a lot of other little ones that I like to do. You know, like, you know the master chef? You know the chef and eating, looking good while you do it? Well, I thought it was also really amazing time to practice is when I'm cooking. So I do very little things. I only really make oatmeal and broccoli and tofu. But those are, you know, that's what I do every morning is the oatmeal. And so, you know, I make this oatmeal, and I really, each movement, I imagine that I'm making it for the most holiest being. And so it's like added on my checklist of like good things that I've done, like super amounts of time, which is kind of cool. You know, it's like, I just have found that expanding, it's like articulating your gestures, you know. I don't know, maybe it's easier if I speak in dance terms, but it's like you're not bowing down to 15 different things every day. Everything then becomes one thing. It's like, you know, it's not when I arrive that, you know, because really once you get on the cushion, it's like, you're riding, you're surfing on the merits of your past lives and your day and your yesterdays, you know. So it's like the work and the grace and the way that you paddle out to sea every day and the way you go to work. Whatever happens when you're at work, it's like, you know, we just hope and pray. But our chances maybe are, how do I go deeper, is maybe I start to illuminate the parts of my life that are not so bright, like my teeth brushing, the times in between destinations, which I've deemed is not so important. That maybe deepening our practice is bringing wisdom into the parts that we thought for some reason weren't as important as the other parts. And it kind of expands naturally the way that you see yourself, which is always a freeing experience. You know, the experience of muscling through things and like getting lockjaw on an idea. This is where it happens. Like meditation, shit, you know, it's not working today and it just ruins everything. That if you kind of loosen the lockjaw, you realize that there's this beautiful fluidity that comes. So when did your meditation really begin? You know, and it began this beautiful flood of like opportunity for me. Like I'm single, very in love with everybody in here at this point, but very single. And so I thought, well, you know, I see people that are in relationships, it's work. It is not all fun and games, right? So I was thinking, okay, well, I have a chance now, like, you know, kind of build it up and kind of get it right, whatever that means. Then I thought, well, if I'm working in between the moments, the moment when I hold my future spiritual enlightened being's hand, that if I'm working in the in-between moments, then I'm falling in love right now. You know, and if my goal is to have the capacity to love so much and have boundless amount of love that I'm free, then that goal is starting right now. You know, so I offer you a suggestion of looking at your practice when you don't think you're practicing. When you are eating that ice cream and there is nothing, you are a slave to at that moment you're eating the ice cream. There's nothing wrong with the ice cream. It's a great time to practice. Is in that moment. You know, it's in that moment. So I've been wanting to go deeper because I had a bout with depression that would happen where I really couldn't do anything for a certain amount of time. Like I would be superwoman and then I'd crash. And so I figured, all right, well, I have to make the time where I'm moving really fruitful because I'm having these problems where, you know, I can't move for a little bit of time. So I was very, you know, we have to use our time well. And when you're having a wall, maybe release the lockjaw and kind of play with where the beginning and ends are of things. But that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I just want to add a little something. Just since Miriam mentioned depression, if you study Master Shantideva's text, he actually talks about it. And he talks about the causes of it. And it's interesting because it's like he kind of introduces depression as a caricature of the cause. Like the cause is that we were thinking only of ourselves in the past. And then it sort of manifests as not being able to think of anyone but ourselves and how bad we feel. You know, and it kind of leaves us paralyzed. And it's like the one thing that would make us feel better is to think of others, but it's the hardest thing to do in that moment when you're very depressed. And I've been there also, you know, you feel like you can't even do anything but stare at a wall. You know, so he gives the actual causes to create a happy mind and to avoid depression. And one of the causes I thought was really interesting is following through with what you say you're going to do. So one of the causes of being depressed is making promises that you don't keep. You know, so if you have this tendency, that's something that you can like keep track of maybe in your book or something. Just that, you know, if you say to someone, let's have lunch, or let's see each other in a week or so, just make sure that you do it, you know. Or you say to your boss, like, I'm going to finish this tomorrow, that it's done tomorrow. And then that way you're planting these very powerful seeds. Knowing what you're planting is just very powerful in and of itself. And it becomes a very powerful cause to have a joyful mind. So she's gonna, if we're kind of talking about the three principal paths, like Miriam's verse was on renunciation, you know, sort of like understanding that your precious life is incredibly rare, and that you know, death is uncertain, you don't know when it's going to come, and that you're kind of motivated by this realization. It's funny, all the realizations, they sort of like come in levels. So you're motivated at the very basic level, motivated by this realization that you don't know how long you have, but you know what you've been doing is not causing you happiness. you know, and all of us in this room have had that sort of realization at some level. We've kind of had this thought in our mind, like falling to our knees and saying, okay, give up. Whatever method I've been trying isn't working. You know, I'm going to try something new. And so that's kind of like Miriam had renunciation verse, and then Rishi is going to talk about anger, and it sort of like introduces us to the second path, which is compassion.
So tonight, I'm going to talk about trying to kill anger inside of yourself, and it's kind of like the idea that every time you get angry, it kills all of your good deeds and all your good intentions that you've tried so hard and you've been so mindful about making in your life. They say that it's like eons of goodwill and good deeds are killed every time you even get angry just once. So I think it's just like a really serious issue, and I think most people, especially in New York, you know, living in this kind of like lifestyle, this fast-paced lifestyle, it's very easy to kind of get irritated and lose our patience and get angry more easily than it is, you know, in a country where no one's bothering you and there's less people. So I think tonight I was just going to try and touch on some of the reasons why and how actual anger functions, and that maybe we could change the way in which we see anger and have a feeling that we could maybe understand it a little bit better and start planting seeds that will help us have a brighter future with less and less anger in it. So I have a little bit of mommy brain, so I'm going to have to jot my notes a little bit more often, I think, with that. But I'll try and be consistent anyway. So anyway, for me, anger usually arises when I feel like something external, either a person or a situation, is kind of impending on something that I think I want to do or I don't want to do, and I'm kind of out of control in that moment about how it's going to affect me. And usually it's kind of like it's like the external circumstances kind of play against or kind of in competition with my internal ideas about, you know, and my resistance to, you know, change in that moment, and that's what causes me the pain and causes maybe anger to arise as a way of protecting myself in that situation. So so I guess we're talking a little bit like about in the moment that we don't really have control of what's ripening and what's materializing and manifesting for us, but that we definitely have an opportunity in that moment in our reaction and how to transform the way in which we see anger and understand anger, so that the seeds that we plant are better seeds than the ones we planted in the past, so that anger becomes less and less an issue in our life. But in our in this culture, in American culture, there's like two very big extremes. It's either like you resist and you kind of repress your anger in a way that makes you feel like, you know, kind of shameful about having it in the first place. And then there is the like aggressive part, like you really attach to and identify with anger, and you associate yourself with that, and you think, you know, it's like a macho, great thing, you know, to kind of be expressive and freely express yourself all the time. So it's kind of like we're going to, like in killing anger, you're going to try and use anger against itself and kind of get angry about being angry, kind of thing. That's what one way he put it. So you like fight the mental affliction of anger and kind of declare war on it, and so to speak. Because happiness and anger, they can't coexist. You can't be both happy and angry at the same time. So it's pretty important that we find a solution to it and try and figure out a better way of living, you know. So an example of this is this page. So let's take irritating people as an example. That's an easy one. So we usually think that. So you make me angry. So I'm going to tell you the ways that you need to change so that you don't. So here are the ways that I think you should change so that you don't make me angry anymore. And according to Buddhism, this is completely like the wrong way of viewing things. So, because in the reality, nobody really has the ability to make you angry. You're the one that has that won't get angry anymore by letting other people. You can't change other people, so you have to change yourself and the way in which you see yourself and the way in which you see them. So fortunately, anyway, the gospel in Buddhism is that everything is changeable, so that is possible, that we are able to do that. And as long as we have an understanding that there are really no irritating people in the world, only people that irritate us, So, because no two people, I guess I need to explain that a little bit better, because no two people are the same, and no two people see each other the same way. You might have a person that you find very irritating, but the next person beside you might think that person is very, very nice and doesn't find them irritating at all. And they have this family that love them and friends, abundant friends, and you're still finding them very irritating. So it's difficult to understand how that works when you're thinking, when you have wrong worldview about yourself and how things are coming at you. So I guess I said that, but if you saw a person as fixed and as an irritating person, everyone would see them that way, and everybody couldn't see them that way. So it's like your own anger then that's causing these irritating people to be in your life, and the anger is dressed as like irritation in that situation. So when you're in a potentially angry situation and you're starting to get all riled up, and what you're experiencing in that moment is very, you're feeling the aggression starting to come up in you. There's an anger zone. It's before anger really takes hold of you, and it's before it's before you start really feeling aggressive towards the other person. It's it's having that moment that you can transform the conditions and create anger in the future. Sorry, guys, I'm getting a little bit bogged down. So it's before that moment, that's where you fight anger. You fight the good fight there, and you have to fight it over and over again in your mind. So it's before anger takes over that you have to try and transform how you're feeling. And but it's not like repressing anger. It's like a recognition that the way anger functions in that moment, and it's understanding that you can change it and that you have the control to be able to change it. But obviously you have to start off kind of with small things. You try and pace yourself, and the next time you start feeling a little bit angry, you pull back, and you last 2 minutes rather than 3 minutes before you get upset, or that if you're trying to get to the end of the day without getting totally irritated, and over time slowly you become stronger and stronger and able to recognize what's happening in you when that's actually happening, and then you able to step back and view it in the right way, and plant seeds for it. And it's over time you have the ability to be able to change yourself, and it's you that changes, not the external. And then once that happens, irritating people are less and less in your life, and to the point then that they're not in your life anymore. So am I making that clear? Yeah. Oh yeah, I just was using the example when myself and my husband were talking about, being in Grand Central. We were one day you're in Grand Central and everybody seems really aggressive and kind of cold and rushing around the place, and then the next day you're there, everybody seems really engaging and patient and everyone's smiling at you. And it's this idea that those things, not all nice people come to Grand Central on Tuesdays, and all mean people come to Grand Central on Fridays. So it's this idea that that these experiences are coming from your mind, coming from the seeds that you've planted in the past. and that in that moment, as you walk through Grand Central, you're planting the seeds for your future events, and in the mindset that you're in that moment is planting what you're going to feel like, good or bad, in the future. So it's just very important to be mindful and aware of always how you're feeling, and to try and make your life better. I know the reason I chose these verses was because I feel like anger is one of the things that really kind of takes over and kind of takes control of you before you can even think about it. You know, it's kind of one of those ones that can really damage and make you feel pretty bad when you're not in control and helping yourself reach your highest potential. You know, I often find that, you know, I guess the Irish culture, there's pretty rough and tough, you know. It's kind of like been something that you know, I've been battling with, you know, and it's become much easier since I've lived in the States. But it's the kind of idea that it's okay to feel that way, but it's also important that you try and better yourself, because, you know, we're all here to reach our highest potential, and we don't want to push ourselves back into a place that makes it very, very slow for us to reach that goal, you know. So so change you, and you change your world, because the world is coming from you, not at you. So as we learn to bear pain, pain that kind of disguises itself as anger, we become stronger and able to endure the inevitable, you know, hardships that come up in our lives. The idea that we can bear the small pains, so that in turn we can bear the hardships that come, the greater hardships that are inevitable for all of us have to deal with: sickness and death and getting old. And these two verses to me really kind of like captured. I should probably read them, right? There is nothing in the world which does not come easily if you make a habit of it. Make then a habit of bearing the small pains, and thus enjoy the greater. Besides, suffering possesses certain great qualities. It brings sadness, which removes our arrogance. It brings compassion for those caught in the cycle of pain. It brings fear of doing harm, and a majesty of virtue. So let's just take the first verse. If you make a habit of it, make then a habit of bearing the small pains, and thus enjoying the greater. Like, to me, anger is just like that. It's just like a habit, like everything else. And we can just as easily make a habit of self-discipline and being able to control that as a habit as any, you know, as just, you know, going off. And every time we do it, it becomes easier and easier to practice. Our response becomes much stronger to pain and to anger. And we learn that self-discipline, and with self-discipline we can learn how to bear our pain in a way that we can, so that when, I've already said that, but so with that we have more resilience and we're prepared and more resilient when larger, bigger pains come into our lives. Like recently I had something happen in my family that was very painful for me to experience, and it was like whenever we go through like a difficult situation, it can kind of be very humiliating and very humbling. But I think it's like in the humility of that situation, it kind of has the ability to kind of bare our soul and kind of like allow us to really feel compassion, and really feel compassion for another person, and to understand what it is to be kind of human, and to, I don't know, it feels like, you know, that we have an opportunity like to overcome like so much if we open our hearts to compassion, and we have a capacity so much greater than we allow ourselves to have. And I feel like a lot of the time that we, in very bad habits, and like just say anger or irritation or all the things that hold us back, they hold us back from really, really reaching like our goal of becoming like a truly kind, loving person. And I think when we understand that the suffering around us is a manifestation of our past actions and our past anger, we kind of like start understanding that planting bad seeds of anger, is far much more scary than like. Sorry, Liz, I'm just like losing my train of thought. I think I forgot to breathe. I'm so sorry, Liz. It's just so hard when I'm pregnant. I'm losing my train of thought the whole time. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that we hold the view with conviction that fear for planting seeds should be far greater than anger itself. It's like the idea that the cycle of pain should be far greater and should put us off so much more than like allowing ourselves to become angry. Like we should really, really like try not to let ourselves become angry and irritated, because the damage that we do in that is far much greater, and it just stops us from being happy. And that's our greatest goal, is to find happiness and to make other people happy. And nobody wants to be around somebody that's angry or constantly irritated and finding things so difficult,
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there a cause for anger that's karmically explained?
Oh, like the way you were talking before? What?
Anger.
Yeah, anger causes anger. Yeah, if you set the seeds for anger and if you react in an angry way.
But the anger that arises within you is caused by your past anger?
Yeah, of the way you react in a situation. I think cause and effect is very similar. I think, the cause is similar to the effect, right?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Usually not sexual misconduct.
Oh, really? What happens
Like
there?
smells.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway.
So, yeah, I guess I guess Laura was talking about killing and stuff. But yeah.
But I understand patience.
I don't get that. What do you mean by smells?
They say that the cause of smelling really smelly things is sexual misconduct.
Yeah, and cockroaches.
Oh.
Wait, oh, really?
Yeah.
I never heard that one.
That's in dining.
Having cockroaches.
Really?
Having cockroaches is sexual misconduct.
Bug bites.
Bug bites too?
Bed bugs.
Oh, bed bugs. Yeah, that would be nice. So anyway. So I'm just going to read this one part. It was like a breakdown of the way I saw these verses. So the Buddhist principle that life is suffering. So to understand that suffering is like our vehicle for which good things kind of come. Because if we use it in the right way, we can shift the way of thinking so that we can start to see a much more powerful, clearer way of thinking. We can see that people that cause us suffering are our greatest teachers, and we can see that they choose this type of suffering as a way to. Sorry guys, I'm just going to stop.
It's okay.
It's just like, I'm sorry.
Being pregnant is like smoking weed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to. No, it's okay. Don't worry. I just want to say one thing about anger is that I think most of us aren't the kind of people that lash out and verbally abuse others and like that. But I think anger lives in our thoughts that we don't check on a constant basis. I know that I mean, less so now than before, but I think I used to walk around with like a low level of irritation all day long. Like on the subway and walking on the street and, every little thing, someone getting in my way. Just planting these seeds all the time to make my world stay so ordinary, you know, and then wondering why I see so much violence in my life. And really, I think, you know, they say that the greatest antidote for anger is wisdom. It's this understanding where things come from. And if you really, really understood where things are coming from, you could never get angry because it was you that put the thing there that got you angry. You know? But I think you said it, you know. But I think also a really, really sweet way of working on anger is work on your wish to bring others to enlightenment. And then anger just starts to fall away. You know, if you really look around and see that everybody is just barely hanging on, everybody is just suffering, and everybody is getting closer and closer to their death. And you really just get in your heart this kind of desperate wish that wanted to save them as though they were your mother, which they were. Then you couldn't get angry at them anymore. You know, and they did something annoying, you could always turn it into compassion. You know, like you're walking across the street and somebody, this happens to us every day, right? People are just kind of turning, and you have to, you know, they're like, they think they're more important than you walking across the street, and they have to get by, and you could easily bring up like aversion, but instead you could say, oh, they're totally a stressed out person, you know, they must be kind of in a miserable place. I know exactly what that feels like. And then immediately, like, you start to calm down that little fire. So anger is tricky because you could hear these teachings and you could think like, oh, I'm such a bad person, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I'm so angry, and, you know, and you could feel, you could add guilt to anger, which is just another thing that holds you back. It's just an unproductive emotion, you know. So just work on instead developing the wish that wants others to be happy, and the wish to remove their pain, and then anger just slowly goes away. Slowly. But surely. I think we could use a little break, so let's take like a 15-minute break. Feel free to have treats, and I'll put those cookies out there.